Okay, okay, okay. Thank you everyone for being here. My name is Sebastián González. I am the head of corporate venturing and partnership of Wayra, Argentina, Chile, and Peru. Welcome to the Corporate Venturing Latam talks. This is a webinar about corporate venturing in Latin America. A report that we made between Wayra, ES Business School with the support of Corfo. We know this report has caused a great impact because it's essential information for executives, innovation managers, people from the universities, and of course, the entrepreneurs and the startups, okay? First, let me introduce the two people that are presenting this report. First, Agustin Rotondo, he is the regional manager from Wayra, Argentina, Chile, and Peru. And Jose Maria Ciota, he is the executive director from the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Center in ES Business School. Okay, but first, we want to know who is in the room. Okay, please check the now in your screen. There are a survey, and please tell us about your background. If you are a VC, a corporate, academic institution, or you are from government, or you are a startup, etc. Okay, please the next 20 seconds ask this question to know what is your role. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have the answers. No? Apollo, we have the answers. Okay. If you have any questions, there's a Q&A section below your screens, and you can ask what you want in during the session, and at the end we ask all the questions. Okay. Okay. There are a few academic people, more than 20% from government, VC, and some corporations too. Okay, it's a very mixed people in the room. Okay, it's good. Okay, let me introduce first to Agustin Rotondo. Agustin Rotondo is one of people who are supporting this project at the beginning. He is the actual manager from Wayra in Argentina, Chile, and Peru. Agustin, please.
Thank you very much, Sebas, and good evening to everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. First of all, thank you, as I said, for connecting. We know that we are living difficult times, and it's important to go on and to continue speaking out relevant things. And we, even when we did this report with another context, we strongly believe that nowadays it's even more relevant, because one of the big learnings that the coronavirus is going to leave for every one of us is the strong need and the importance and the relevance of transformation. And this is what we are going to talk about today, about how do companies work hard to transform themselves and to generate new sources of revenue, new sources of businesses, to keep in touch with the speed of transformation that the world is having nowadays. So let me share with you a presentation. And and tell me if it's okay. So I'm gonna give a brief introduction for everyone about why corporates, and from the Wayra perspective, why corporates look for working side by side with startups. And then I'm gonna introduce you to Jose Maria Ciora, the executive director from the IESE. He gonna tell a little bit more about the insights that the Corporate Venturing Latam report and some findings very interesting for you to share. So let's begin with this question: why do companies need to innovate? And innovation is not a matter of a good to have, but in the last years, it really became a matter of survival. Companies that are not ready to innovate will die. And we know the typical examples, such as, you know, Kodak, for example, or Blockbuster, but it's something that it's really here to stay. The need for innovation and the speed of innovation in every market is going so fast that it's not enough for the companies to deal with this need of innovation with internal resources. Even when you have, I don't know, a team of 100 people or even 1,000 people innovating inside the company, you will never reach that level of speed and getting in touch to new ways of doing businesses and new ways of finding new customers. So what the companies realized some years ago is that it's very smart to trust in or to look what is happening outside the company, what is called open innovation. It's to being open to find what is happening, who is innovating outside the company. And one of the big sources of innovation outside the company are startups, because these agile young companies are very have the power and the agility to innovate fast as the market needs. So that is why companies like Telefonica, for example, are looking for startups to innovate. And this is not a recent or a local thing. It's happening really since the last years, and it's happening faster, and not only in the USA or in Europe, but everywhere all around the world. And as you can see in the graph at left, in the last years, the CVC-backed funding deals has been growing really fast. And if you find different sources, you will find out that this represents around 25% of the whole deals. So we are saying here that 1/4 of the whole venture capital deals have a corporate behind them. Corporate are investing in at least 1/4 of all the deals happening in the world. That's really a lot. And this is a trend that is going, it's emphasizing year by year. So this is the question that Telefonica wants to answer with Wayra. How can I do to innovate fast as the market needs? So Wayra appeared almost 10 years ago as the open innovation hub of Telefonica. We invest in companies with a strong focus on generating business together between the companies and Telefonica and their partners. So in this, it's very funny because my dog is running from one side to the house to the other side. So I'm listening like the dog running, but anyways, that's home office. So going back to the open innovation and Wayra, this is a win-win situation for the startups and for the Telefonica and their partners, because the big companies, we are looking for transformation, we are looking for new sources of revenues, we are looking for reaching customers with a fresher image, and also the startups, they are looking for a strong corporation that can give them new sources of revenue, also the ability to reach new customers. So working together is getting the best of everyone, and that's why we do it at Wayra, and that's why startups want to work with us. Some figures about what we did in these 10 years, almost 10 years. We have now at least 500 companies in portfolio. 1/3 of them are working with Telefonica. We are partnering with around 300 companies and governments and also NGOs. And invested more than almost 170 million euros in our companies through Wayra and through other vehicles that we have in Telefonica also. But it's due to this experience in the ecosystem that we found out that a lot of corporates are okay, no, you mute. A lot of corporates want to work with startups and don't even know how to do it. So that's why we launched this new service, the Wayra Venture Partners, to work side by side with other corporates and help them to find and to build their open innovation strategy through scouting, through building POCs, proofs of concept with them, integrating these startups to their companies, and also finding a way for them to invest in startups. These are some of the corporations and some of the organizations that trust on us. It was a really interesting journey. It is a really interesting journey. But we also found out that it was not enough, because the ecosystem, the corporate venture capital ecosystem, the open innovation, or let's say the corporates working with startups, because open innovation and corporate venturing is a concept that Jose Maria will explain a little bit better later. It's an ecosystem that it's not really mature. It's still in doing their first steps. So we need to build and to help to build the ecosystem in Latin America. I'm talking about Latin America now. So that's why we started with this Corporate Venturing Latam project, to build a network of corporates that want to work together with other corporates and with startups to generate this ecosystem. And this is, we have been working on this with local associations like ARCAP, the Argentinian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, also with ACBC from Chile and with PECAP from Peru. But also we want to get more involved in this subject, because we think it's really interesting, and if we build ecosystem, we will get more opportunities for everyone. But the first step for that was mapping and characterizing what's happening in the region, because we found out that we have a lot of information of what's happening in the States or in Europe, but very few and not centralized information of what's happening in Latin America. And that is what Jose Maria is going to share with you today. An overview of what's happening in the corporate venturing business in Latin America. We're going to see that we have interviewed with a lot of corporates and we have insights of different initiatives all across the board in different industries. This is a very interesting report. So Jose Maria, I'm going to pass this presentation through you. And for the rest of you, I invite you to participate in this global trend. And after finishing, I want to share with you one strong image that we often use at Wayra, that is the elephant dancing with the gazelles, because we really believe that this is what open innovation is about, or what corporate venturing is about. It's about big corporates, solid, strong corporates that have to be agile and work side by side with the gazelles, but without stepping them. So thank you very much, and Jose Maria.
Okay, thank you, Agustin, for the introduction and the details of Wayra role in the corporate venturing ecosystem. And now I want to introduce to Jose Maria Ciota. Jose Maria is the executive director of the ES Business School centered on entrepreneurship and innovation. And he also is an expert in innovation in the World Economic Forum, and expert of corporate venturing at the European Commission. It's okay, Jose Maria? Perfect. Jose Maria will share with you the main results and insight of this report. Okay. Thank you, Jose Maria, for being here, and let's go.
Thank you very much, Sebas. I have to say it's a real pleasure to be here for a second time. We had the previous webinar during the past hour, so we are willing to put a lot of effort also in this one, all our energy. I have to say, also to confess, that it has been also a pleasure to work with the whole team of Wayra, Telefonica, also with the support of Corfo. It has been an incredible project, great team. Today we have, I think, a very relevant topic. And to start with that, I would like to begin with the definition of what is corporate venturing. And the reason why is because if you ask to someone in Asia or in Africa or in the North or South America or Europe this question, they may answer different things, even more. If you ask the same question to different people in the same country, that may happen again. So for the past years, we have been trying to develop research, studies, knowledge on what's corporate venturing. And for that, I would like to start with two examples, two of the many, many examples that are happening in Latin America. One of those is the company, the food and beverage company Bimbo, that with the venture arm, but also with the incubator and accelerator that they have, Bimbo Eleva, they have been working with entrepreneurs, with startups for a long time. With, for instance, with Bimbo Eleva, with the 16-week program where they enhance the development of the entrepreneurs. On the other hand, you have also Itaú from the financial sector, where they, with Redpoint Ventures, have built this unique co-working space, Kubo, where they are already today are supporting more than 100 entrepreneurs in their offices. And this is just two examples of how we understand corporate venturing. As we described in our recent article at Harvard Business Review, is any collaboration or the collaborative framework between established corporations and innovative startups. And that has a few consequences. The first one, we said established firms, established corporations. So this is not only for big giants or corporate giants, although these studies focus on that for the reasons we will explain later, but also for SMEs, for small and medium enterprises. You are also important. In many regions, you are the majority of the business environment of the companies that are in the region. So this is also for you. The second consequence is that we mentioned innovative startups. That means that there are many mechanisms to work between established corporations, established firms, and innovative startups. So this is not just corporate venture capital, but much richer. And I'm going to describe a framework that we have been using for a bit of time. That is, first, if you see the more outside box, the up innovation, where Jasper defines or assumes that new ideas and innovation can come from outside the new ideas. Within that box of up innovation, you have different sub boxes or subsets: corporate venturing, but also university venturing, government venturing, and many, many others. corporate venturing, within the box of corporate venturing that we have explained already, we have also different mechanisms. This is not just corporate venture capital, from venture clients, venture builders, hackathons, and many, many more. But the question behind here, also relevant, is why this is emerging so fast. So why? And a few notes on that. The first one, please, all the corporates, governments, investors, people who work within a corporation, look to that box, read it. Do you feel that you are flagged with that in the corporation? So usually slow organizations, aversion to risk. On the other hand, startups, entrepreneurs, all the whole ecosystem of entrepreneurial ecosystem, do you see yourself in that box? The challenges that you face every year at morning, tight budgets, narrow visibility. The interesting part in this collaboration is that the weaknesses of some are the strengths of the others. And that's why this is so much complementary. Another reason or proxy that we have seen is the level of the speed of change in the market. If we benchmark, if we get the list of the Fortune 500 companies that were in the ranking, and we check the same this year, we'll see that half of the companies that were there have either disappeared or completely or dramatically changed their business model, so how they work. And this type of mechanisms of corporate venturing are supporting all those companies. We just, for instance, if we check that list, we see how more than 75% of those companies are working already on those mechanisms. And this data is not from this year, it's from last year. So this number is even higher. And this is creating impact. It's not just blah, blah, blah. We are seeing real impact on companies. And here you have a few examples from new product lines and therefore new revenue, for also reducing or to increase the efficiencies of some of the processes. And here, for instance, in the second example with SAP, through different proof of concepts, but also increasing the speed on how do you produce those proof of concepts or tests or collaborations. This is a question that is relevant not for corporations or for startups, but for the whole ecosystem, for private investors, for governments, for universities. And here, maybe you can see some of the questions that you have in your mind on how to spot opportunities before others. When you want to work with a corporation, what's the right door to enter? Or if you're a government, how can you enhance the whole ecosystem? But all the questions have a common denominator. What's happening? What's the reality? What's the current picture? So I can take actions. I can face that reality. And that's why it's so relevant, this study. In the region, we have seen in the past years that there has been an increase in the whole entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem. Here you have a few proxies that show that growth from the VC investment growing since 2011 dramatically. Also the number of startups that from different sizes have been raising more funding in those regions. But then comes to another big proxy, that is before we have seen one of these databases or sources of innovation. Here we have a few examples: Crunchbase, PitchBook, CP Insights, Global Corporate Analytics, Labka, the Association for VC in the region, and there are many other sources of information. But at the end of the day, you can see kind of a pattern of what's the existing data that we had before this study in the market. And this study, and before that, here you have the segmentation of the blue color. So 70 billion is the first column. The second blue, a bit darker, from 25 to 70 billion, and then from 4 to 25. That is the revenue, the annual revenue of corporates in headquarters, analyzing this study, kind of the segmentation. So here you have what it was before. And here is the current study. So we have just for one of the mechanisms, the corporate venturing capital, the CVC, we have dramatically increased the number of companies doing those mechanisms, but also if we check all the other mechanisms, I will provide more details later, we see a really big change on that number. But the how we were able to find those corporations, entrepreneurs, ecosystems through a rigorous process, through research that was combined not only with literature review, data analysis, but also we had the support of more than 130 chief innovation officers and similar roles that help us to analyze in deep those more than almost 2,000 institutions. We found and we follow a focus on that analysis where the activity was concentrated. The first focus was on the annual revenue. So companies were headquartered. So the whole company had at least annual revenues of $4 billion. When I say billion, I mean 4,000. Time horizon. So we did the measure from June of 2018 until 2019. And the different mechanisms from challenge prizes, hackathons, scouting missions, venture builders, co-working spaces, corporate incubators, accelerators, corporate venture capital, and startup acquisitions. Be careful. Here we say acquisitions of startups, not any type of acquisition. And one last focus, the regional focus, here you have the number of companies with at least that amount of annual revenue per country. This is data from Orbis that we analyzed. And here you see how there are a few regions, the top 6 that are having more of those companies. So that's why we also focus on these countries. But then the big question, what's the reality? What were the results of the study? The first big shot was that there is a lot of things happening in the region. We track more than 107 corporate giants running those almost 460, 470 initiatives all around the region, in Peru, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil. In case you cannot see the scale of gray that you have in the boxes, in the squares, the darker are the ones, as we have seen before, that are bigger in terms of revenue. Then the second one, the second tier in terms of revenue, and the third tier. The results were not only in terms of corporate giants and initiatives, but also those were run in 184 subsidiaries in 6 countries in 19 cities. But have we found any pattern in terms of size? And the answer is yes. So bigger corporates were usually adopting those mechanisms, so working with the startups than smaller companies. Here, with the same segmentation of the 3 colors of the 6 countries, we have the level of penetration. We define penetration in this study as the amount of corporations in our sample of analysis versus those that are adopting corporate venturing. And here, if you see carefully, you will see that either the top 1 or top 2 groups of segmentation by revenues always are bigger, at least one of those from the third one. However, when we see this as a whole, as a market, and we compare, for instance, with the Fortune 100, we see some, let's say, differences. In the following slide, you see how we have an average of 16% penetration among those that we were, the sample that we were analyzing, and the Fortune 500 with that 75% that we have seen before. That's a big difference. And that's not bad news. That's good news because there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of room for growth, not only within the region, but also working with other regions. In terms of the activity, it was concentrated in 6 countries. Here you have the 6 countries where we had more focus, and also the segmentation by industry of all those countries. We found that activity, or if you want to call it like this, corporate venturing hubs, they were concentrated in 6 countries in 7 cities: Sao Paulo, Mexico, Bogotá, Medellín, Santiago, Buenos Aires, and Lima. There was also a focus on industry, where here with a similar pattern, we see how there are 4 top industries that were more developed in terms of corporate venturing, in terms of adoption of those mechanisms. In this case, financial services, IT, consulting, and telecommunication sector. But then I would like to ask you a question to the audience. Now, please keep in mind the companies that we were discussing in today. And now think, where do you imagine they would have their headquarters? And I can read in your mind, you are thinking, Latin America, of course, if the subsidiaries are from there. However, we found something different in the study, something counterintuitive. In the majority of the cases, so 45%, the headquarters of the subsidiaries, Latin American subsidiaries doing corporate venturing, were in Europe, followed by a 25% in Latin America, and then 24 United States, followed by Asia and others. If we zoom in within Latin America, we found also this segmentation led by Brazil, 41%, and followed by Mexico, 19%, Colombia, 17%, then Peru, Argentina, and Chile. Also, we found a concentration by mechanism. In this slide, you can see the segmentation by mechanism, so hackathons, venture builders, co-working, and so on and so forth in the left chart. And then in the columns, you have the different countries with an average in green. In the second chart, sorry, still in the first chart, under in the y-axis, you see the level of penetration from 0 to 70% in the highest case. In the right chart, there you see the different mechanisms, but contemplating all those regions with the adoption level by mechanism. For instance, the challenge price was the most common mechanism applied in the 23% of the cases. And here, one of the partners we found is that corporates are bidding for low-cost engagements. Scouting missions, challenge prices are usually more cost effective. However, the question here is, are we choosing the right mechanisms? So what now? And the question here is there any way where with all this data we can have so what, an insight, a recommendation, a consequence, a way to speed up the process of adoption of this practice of corporate venturing in Latin America? Gathering insights from all the interviews we conducted with those chief innovation officers and similar roles and experts, we found the following 3. 1, relying more numbers and less on heart. I remember when we were doing another study 2 years ago with around 300 chief innovation officers, and we did a lot of questions. We were kind of really tough, 200, 300 questions in that study to each chief innovation officer. And you know what was one of the most common answers? I don't know the answer, I'm learning. I don't have data because some of these mechanisms are so new. And third one, I don't have a benchmark because either my competitors are in the same as me, in the same situation, or they don't want to share. Now, the good news is that we have more data, more studies, more knowledge. So let's use that, let's say, information that we have to take better decisions rather than using the hype. The second one is cross-pollinating corporate venturing knowledge. And what does it mean? So that 45% that we have found in Europe and the other data that we found previously, it's interesting to see how there are corporations in Latin America that are really leveraging subsidiaries, other institutions, not only locally, but also in other regions to adopt more knowledge, to speed up the process of learning, to get more best practices from others. So do you have, and it's the question to you, do you have a strategy to share best practices, not only among the team or among departments or among countries, but across subsidiaries, not only in the region, but also outside? You have those mechanisms in place. And the third one, the clusters. Another pattern we found is that before, few people or few corporations were doing corporate venturing. Now, as you have seen in the data from Agustin and also in the data that we have seen before, there is an emerging trend. So more and more corporates are doing corporate venturing. What happened? So before you were able to choose the entrepreneur, the startup you want to work with. Now more and more you have kind of competitors because you have other corporates that want the same entrepreneur. So the question now is, if you want to work with a startup tomorrow at 9 a.m., what are you going to offer to him or to her? And I can read your mind, financial resources, distribution channels, technical expertise. But then if you ask the same question to your competitor, the one that keeps you up at night, what is going to answer? And then the tough question, what makes you unique? So now the question is, how can you differentiate? How can you propose something that is unique? How can you improve your value proposition? And clusterization that is using, so partnering together with other corporates to do joint challenges, to approach those entrepreneurs can increase your value proposition. Before, you were able to offer one technical expertise or 20 countries for distribution channel. Now with, for instance, a cluster of 5, you can offer 5 technical expertise in 5 industries, 100 countries for the distribution channel, and many more. But not only you can increase the value proposition offered to the startup, but also you can reduce your cost of innovation by sharing with other partners. So in short, what we have learned today, or what are some of the insights that we have found? In terms of activity, this is happening. So be aware, put always Latin America in the radar because it is relevant. And if you're in Latin America, find also what others are doing because this is happening. The number of corporates that we have found with a focus on bigger corporates, and we have a lot of opportunity to grow compared with other regions. The second one, this is happening in concentrations, in hubs. So this is concentrated in 6 countries, in 7 cities, with a highlight in financial services and the other that we have seen, so telecommunications, consulting, IT. And Europe, this bridge between Europe and Latin America is getting more relevant. And then how can we speed up the process of adoption across the region, relying more numbers and less on hype, leveraging more subsidiaries, other institutions to in-source knowledge faster, and they're partnering with other corporates. And this, before in a previous slide, you have a map of who is doing what and where you can see, hey, can we work together? Do we want to do a program together? Those kind of things. So for all of you today, you can download all what we have discussed. And I have seen a few questions saying, are you going to share the screen? I saw the slides. Here you have something better, that is the report. So here, if you have an iPhone or an Android, you can click directly in the QR code, so you can download the report with all the data that we have described today. Lastly, as today I'm here in the webinar, not only to share the results, but also to learn from all of you, I would like to ask you a question while Sebas is preparing the questions for the Q&A. And my question, I would like to ask you for the following challenge. So please get your mobile. Yes, although you are at home, you can have a mobile there. And I would really appreciate if you can, just a second, go to menti.com, insert that code 217410, and please try to answer the following question. While you are filling the answer, I'm going to describe the possible options, the possible choices. Here in the first side is there any, so if you want to work, if you were a corporation and tomorrow at 9 a.m. you want to do corporate venturing, what are going to be your main challenges? It's going to be, as the first one, very quick, congratulations for that, is the lack of buy-in from the top management. Are going to be the internal politics, silos of information across the departments, the survival mindset of, oof, this innovation may harm my P&L or my business model, market instability or their startup ecosystem. So while you are starting to answer in the platform, I would like to also invite now Sebas, so you can start gathering the questions of the audience, and happy to start answering those. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jose Maria. Okay, let's go with the question. The first questions is about the concentration of the activity that you mentioned now. Is which specific suggestion will you share with players who want to foster corporate venture in a smaller market or ecosystem like Uruguay, Paraguay, Central America, etc.?
Okay, so I'm going to verify that I have understood the question. So how
you can improve corporate venturing in smaller markets, in smaller countries like Uruguay, Paraguay, Central America, Ecuador, and others?
Sure. So I would say I would ask myself the following question and then take one of these two strategies depending on the answer. So the question is my corporate venturing ecosystem enough strong? If the answer is yes, is how can I enhance that? If not, is how can I either bring it from outside or boost the weaknesses or the challenges that I have? And that one also appeared that similar question in the previous webinar is we have to answer on the 3 pillars for building that corporate venturing ecosystem. As is the collaboration between established firms and innovative startups, the first question is, do we have deal flow of entrepreneurs, not only quantity, but also quality? The second pillar on the corporate side is, do we have enough corporations that are willing to enhance, to open that door to corporate venture? And the third one is, do we have the right ecosystem, entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, to bring that to life in terms of the laws, in terms of the infrastructure, the talent, the investment? With that, for instance, you have a very quick way to spot what are kind of the weaknesses and strengths of the ecosystem following for instance, the Global Innovation Index. As you know, all indexes are limited. They have their strengths and weaknesses, but at least you can have a quick way with around 60 to 70 proxies of what are kind of the weaknesses of strengths of your entrepreneurial ecosystem, innovation ecosystem in your region. The second part is, if you want to in-source that talent, is how can you create a policy, or how can you create an ecosystem or a way to bring subsidiaries from corporates that are already doing corporate venture to your region? So how do you convince a corporate to bring the next subsidiary to your region? Can you support that corporation with something, either with a hub, with the connection with entrepreneurs, with investments, or with co-investment policies? Also in the previous discussion, we highlight the Jotma program from Israel, where governments are co-investing in the case of the CBC or the VC to enhance or to bring more investment to the region. Is there any type of mechanism such as that you can bring people, so talent from outside to inside? The second one is to analyze from the 3 pillars what are the challenges. So for instance, in the entrepreneurs, so what's the main challenge for those entrepreneurs? Is that they don't have capital? Is that they are not well trained for creating a startup? Is that they don't have the right laws or infrastructure to do that? And then you can tackle that challenge. So I would say, in short, rather than to give you an overall recommendation, I would say to analyze first what's better to in-source the talent or build or boost the internal talent. The second one, trying to find from the 3 pillars where are the core weaknesses, and then designing a specific plan for the region for those 3 pillars, to have a plan in 90 days to see and to track the impact in those 90 days. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you, Jose Maria. The second question is, it's about, okay, what actions should be taken to foster or increase the corporate venture activity from native Latin American companies, considering the high dependency of foreign multinationals, for example, from US or Europe?
Sure, just a second.
Yes.
So,
how we can increase corporate venturing in Latin American companies from Latin America?
Good point. So, second, incentives, processes. Okay, so I would say that this usually comes from a three-axis framework or mindset. So information, processes, and incentives. If we see this as a pyramid, the first one is to have information. And that's why I rather than give you a generic answer before, I was putting that first pillar of information. One of the trends that we have found in other regions or governments, and we are working for the European Commission, for Asian, and from different governments, is that when regions are not starting with the information, or just let's try something and let's see what happens. That's good if we do a lean startup, let's say principal sandbox to test and learn quickly, but usually it starts with information on what's the current state, what are the weaknesses, what are the quick wins. The second one on the processes, and the third one, a way to incentivize all of that. For that, that also connects with a second frame, and that's why that's the one that I'm going to recommend on sensing, securing, and shifting. On sensing, I would say if we want to collaborate with the startups, the first step is how can we spot the right startup to work with. So my suggestion is let's build together the first step. Is there a way where we can ensure that 1,000 companies in Latin America in the next 100 days can build a little sensing venturing unit, one FTE, for instance, but to track what's happening in the market, trends, the right startups, the ecosystem. So at the end, to have a sensor to spot those opportunities, to in-source what is happening outside, so trends, but also to go outside to getting challenges from the inside the company and get startups that can tackle that. After succeeding on that, I would say, or I would think on, is there a way to prototype or to do quick proof of concepts with those opportunities found? So in the next 90 days, I would suggest to build a lean unit to prototype 5, 6, 7, 10 opportunities in a short period of time, between 3 to 4 months. And the last one, I would say, what within the institutions we have to change in terms of KPIs, incentives, and so on and so forth, so we don't kill those opportunities when they are or when they enter within the corporation. So in short, I would say, first, try to do a deep analysis of the specific region that we want to enhance or to boost, because each region is different. The second one, building those sensors in a sample of corporations to in-source and outsource innovation. The third one, little units, lean units to do those quick prototypes. And the third one, what are the policies, incentives that we have to change to speed up that process? Also, Agustin and Sebas, if you want to complement my answer, please feel free.
Yes, I was just thinking about one more. I agree absolutely with all the four steps you mentioned. Also, getting the C-level involvement, it's vital for the survival of any collaboration with startups. So I would just add that one, getting the C-level to be involved in this initiative.
Another questions. Okay, with the coronavirus crisis, corporations' budgets will get reduced. How this situation may affect corporate venturing initiatives in Latin America, and what we can do as a corporate managers?
Sure. similar questions from the other webinar. It's interesting to see the pattern. So I would continue with the framework that we discussed before of sensing, securing, and shifting. So at the end is we are going to have, so at the end, the opportunity windows, so the time span or time horizons of the opportunity windows maybe are going to be reduced. And in some cases, budgets, I would say, may be reduced or reallocated. So the question is, how can we play those changes of the rules for us, for those departments, those units that you are leading in all the cases in the audience? So on the one side, the sensing, I would say that, and it's my estimation is that it's going to increase. Why? Because when the instability of the market increases, you need more mechanisms to know what's happening outside, but not what is happening now, but is what is going to be next. And for that, you need a unit to sense the market. Otherwise, it's really tough because everyone has the specific internal KPIs, specific deliveries, and then you cannot have the whole perspective of what's happening, or even more, what's happening next. So I would say that sensing units are going to be more relevant if they do a good work. The second one is, my estimation is that there are going to be a focus on more sophisticated and more cost-effective mechanisms. So for instance, in one of the studies that we did, I think it was last year, we measured the cost and the speed per mechanism in terms of months and cost in terms of euros of FTE, so full-time equivalent, and direct cost per mechanism. And we found, and I'm talking the numbers by heart, but you can check in the study. If I remember correctly, we were comparing a corporate incubator with a venture client, where you are, rather than you are not a mentoring program, but you are the first client of a startup. If I remember correctly the numbers, it was able to decrease between 3 to 5 times the cost required for that program, and then you were able to increase the speed between 2 to 4 times among programs between the venture client and the corporate incubator. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do a corporate incubator, but if you do a corporate incubator, to have the reason. So the second insight here is that my assumption is that we're going to use more sophisticated and more cost-effective mechanisms. And for the third one, I'm going to reinforce what Agustin has said, that now more than before, it's important to get the buy-in from the top management, because if we start one initiative, it's important to have all the buy-ins to ensure that that opportunity is going to be across the whole pipeline of the opportunity window.
Okay, we have time to one more question. Okay, so this is which specific suggestions would you share with policymakers or people from government who want to foster corporate venturing in their countries?
Just a second. So I would synthesize into 3 blocks that are knowledge, matching, and opportunities. In terms of knowledge, is sometimes one of the barriers we found to deploy across the world, to deploy corporate venturing, is the lack of experience of or understanding the how to deploy those type of mechanisms. So I would say that if governments enhance or boost ways to share that knowledge, this is just one example, and congratulations to the whole team of Wayra and Corporate for doing this report. But more of those, either reports or webinars like this one, or conferences, or places, even casual places where corporates can meet and share best practices of what they are doing, what is not working, what is working. So I would say sharing knowledge and places to share that knowledge together. The second one, matching platforms. The second barrier that we are finding in many countries, in many regions, is I want to do corporate venturing, but either I don't have the access to entrepreneurs. I don't know how to generate that deal flow of opportunities, or I don't know how to partner, or what are the corporates that are doing what and where. For the latter, the interesting part is that this report may help you. So now you can find something like that. So governments enhancing those type of initiatives, I think that is a good way to do that matching. And for the second one, you can enhance ways to leverage that deal flow. We have seen now there are from fund of funds, you have databases, you have platforms, you can partner with incubators, with accelerators. At the end is how the government can enhance that corporations build a whole corporate venturing ecosystem, external ecosystem around them to ensure those opportunities with universities, research centers, incubators, accelerators, business angels, and so on and so forth. And the third one, opportunities. There are many opportunities that after, and it's connected with the previous question, that after COVID are going to emerge. And I'm going to provide just one example from one region, that is Europe, but you can do the analogy. In Europe, there are 3 million patents, and around 95% are under use, inactive. And the 5 remaining percent generates around 40% of the GDP of Europe. Do you mind to activate just 5%, additional 5% to that, the impact that you can generate? One of the challenges we found is a lack of financing for proof of concept for those type of discoveries. On the other hand, we found how CVC in the last year, there was around $139 billion on investment on the CVC. Do you imagine to interconnect the two worlds? On the one hand, the amount of resources of corporate venture, and on the other hand, the potential that the new trend that is coming, deep tech, deep science, deep technology transfer has. So I would say to have an open mind to spot in advance those opportunities, that would be the third block for enhancing the corporate venture ecosystem.
Okay, thank you, Jose Maria. There's any final comments? Agustin, any to comment?
No, just to thank everybody for being here, for listening to us, and we hope to keep working together with you.
Okay, thank you, Agustin. Thank you, Jose Maria. Thank you, everyone, for attending this webinar. And let's see another occasion. And take care and stay home. Okay. If you have more questions, please send us an email to the address in the chat, and I hope everyone will be okay with this situation. Bye bye, and see you later.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you all for attending. Bye.
Bye.